you, thank you. Thank you, I'm super excited to be here, as I'm coming from Zagreb, Croatia, and really happy to be here with you today. Okay, so just to say something about UNDP, United Nations Development Program. Usually people know about UNICEF, what they do for kids. And the easiest way for me to explain what is UNDP is what UNICEF does for kids. This is what we do for grown-ups. So we think about different development issues. We have colleagues sitting in 170 countries and territories, so supporting governments on different development things. We are also the main integrator when it comes to SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm leading innovation team in Istanbul. So we have a team of 40 people supporting some global projects, and part of our innovation team is Alternative Finance Lab, also where we are working globally. Already over 80 country offices we supported, which means governments in the end. And what we can see is there is a growing demand to see and to ask about, so how AI, how blockchain, how cryptocurrencies, how it can change the way how things are being done in these countries. I will try to summarize a bit of the topics that we are opening, that we are discussing, and looking forward to talk with you later on to see how can we work on some of these things together. But before we start, let's see some of the problems that we are facing today, such as 1/3 of world population is still not connected online. So anything online that we are developing, is it also for them or are they excluded? Then half of the world lives from agriculture and agricultural services, which means with the climate hitting much harder, what does it mean for them? Are we building resilient solutions, or are we putting them in more trouble with this? Over 1.2 billion people still live without electricity and energy poverty. Once again, if we base solutions on mobile phones, do they have somewhere to charge it? Over 1 billion people don't have identity. And if you don't have identity, you don't have also a lot of other governmental services and so on. Over 1.7 billion people is unbanked, which means they cannot come, they cannot borrow some money. They have to find the other way around. So we are not talking about thousands of people. We are not talking about millions. We are talking about the billions of people who are underprivileged. Also from last Human Development Report that UNDP have published, we discovered that over 50% of least developed countries have not yet recovered from COVID crisis and everything which followed that. So by them not being recovered, it means that also their future development trajectory will become slower. There is also a problem with agency, that 5 in 10, which is half of the world population, believes that they are not in charge of their lives, that they don't have impact on how they live. 7 out of 10 people believe that their decisions have, their power has very little influence on the direction of their government. So what can we do about this? And how do we make sure that the solutions that we are bringing are also serving this underprivileged? And not just increasing the digital divide, not just making the rich more rich and the poor more poor. In Alternative Finance Lab, the logic that we took was, because we have people sitting in 170 countries who are supporting their governments, is we need to start with awareness raising, which is also conferences, webinars, and so on. Move into training. So with our grant, we have developed our Blockchain Academy program, which is something that is going to be soon open to all UN employees. But from this training program, we are also going into understanding, so what are the new ideas that we can work together, that we can scale up? And then, who are the partners with whom we can work on really large-scale solutions that will support governments? What we learned so far from working with these blockchain organizations and companies is important to be technology agnostic, because many things are happening in different parts of the blockchain universe. And not creating competition, but creating cooperation, building trust, building longer-term ecosystem, because blockchain is still very small. It's still, the impact is still just maybe less than 1% of what it could be. And there are so many needs for this. And the best way for us to do this is to focus on building open source solutions, so that if somebody builds something successful, the others can use this and start and think about how to take it into scaling up, into new directions, into new context. Starting small, testing before we go to the scale up, and insisting of measuring and showing impact. There is a lot of hot air whenever we talk about new technologies. Sometimes it's difficult to see just from looking from outside. And okay, let me start with the Blockchain Academy, which I said, so this is the program that we started with Algorand Foundation. And after we did the beta testing and we created the materials, soon we are opening it to all 120,000 people who all work in UN, but also opening to NGOs in developing countries and to our project beneficiaries. The idea is to open the universe of what is there in blockchain, what is there in crypto, how can we bring it to the next level. The ideas that are then emerging from this training program in cooperation with the government, because we want our colleagues to go out and talk with their relevant counterparts in ministries, in governments, to find what are the problems on which we have to work together. Then we bring it to blockchain accelerators, where we work with different partners to actually make it happen. But also it's important, how do we make sure, as I mentioned, that there is no competition but cooperation. And this is where we are focusing on building a open UN platform with certain rules and regulations that are enabling that we work in a coherent way with all these organizations. Let me just show some of these initiatives on which we worked or on which we are working now. I will start with our work in track and trace. So with the chocolate bar that we created in Ecuador, the other bar, it was maybe one of the first track and trace projects. It got attention also of the New York Times, and where we tokenized from the first mile to the last mile the production of chocolates, and gamified it a bit. In Morocco, we worked with argan female cooperatives on argan oil. When you buy argan oil, you can get a lot of different quality, and you are not sure is it really good enough. So we try to use the same logic to see, and we will continue working on this. In Serbia, for example, we developed a blockchain solution for the food from supermarkets, which has expiring date. So while it's still fresh, it can be donated to humanitarian organizations, to people in need, without having a fear that some of this will end up on some markets again, or that we will have some other emerging problems from that. In Mongolia, for example, we are supporting a project which brings solar energy instead of coal power for heating 100 households. We are trying to see how it will work, so that based on this decentralized monitoring, verification, and reporting, we can then scale up to a larger voluntary carbon markets. Something about digital identities. One of the larger projects on which we work is with civil society organizations. We work with over 4,000 CSOs, NGOs in the developing world. We are planning to scale it up to over 25,000. But in order to do this, our idea is to have also unique digital ID for each one of them, so that also other partners working with them know exactly with whom they work, and that we can track their work. One of the interesting cases which came from our HIV health team in UNDP was also to work on the vulnerable criminalized groups who suffer from AIDS. From one side on NFTs, from another side also digital ID and better control of their data. When it comes to digital IDs and remittances transfer, this is the project that we had, one of the first ones that we had in Serbia, connecting diaspora from Serbia with people living in city of Niš. Or for example, in Lebanon, we were playing with Cedar coins, where every tree every cedar tree were, in our efforts of reforestation had its own identity, had its own coin, GPS location, picture, so that you can follow what is happening. And we are planning to also work further on this. We are exploring with Algorand also some solution which is working great in Afghanistan, HESAPay, when even if you don't have internet and even if you don't have a smartphone, you can still use the ordinary cell phone, like if you remember with the text messages, to do the payments. So even in systems without internet, and now we are working on how do we transfer it to other countries as well, using USD stablecoins. With Castillo, we are working on smart contracts, quadratic funding, and basically Tadamon, which is our CSO platform, how do we put it in Web 3.0 platform for smart contracts? Because if a disaster happens, for example, in a country, and developing organizations or developing banks want to distribute money to NGOs, it might take 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. With smart contracts, with digital IDs, it could take 5 minutes if there is a system how to do this. So this is something which is also groundbreaking. What we also learned so far from our country offices, from our colleagues, there is a lot of interest for tokenization, fractionalization of green bonds, using tokens for credit markets, for green certificates, and we did one project like this in Bahrain for solar energy. And there is also interesting work going on about green tokens in Montenegro and in North Macedonia, and we were also in touch. In Vienna, there is also something working on green tokens and blockchain. We're also learning from experience in this one, and this is something that we are planning to scale in the next several years in Western Balkans. With European Commission, we worked on 2 accelerators for the blockchain, DLT for good and blockchains for social good. And just to say, if you are in Istanbul in actually 2 weeks, we are organizing a 3-day event which is focused on blockchain and AI. So let me know if you're interested to come. And also October 8 and 9, organizing a 2-day events in Podgorica in Montenegro, also working with the Prime Minister's office and with EU. How do we bring actually innovation from blockchain into public governance? So this is a part of our team also on the picture for those who want to stay connected. But I will be here around today, so I hope to talk with many of you and see how can we work together on some of these things. Yes. Thank you.